Hello there. I am so glad that you are joining us tonight because, A, it's a gorgeous day. I don't even know. We have the worst storms coming in, but they're not here tonight. They're not going to interfere with the show. But it has been beautiful. It has been fun. Little rain here and there, but you know what? It's still glorious. I am so blessed and so excited to be doing this show. Hello, Jeremy York. I have someone that's one of my favorite guests. And when he wrote his first book, he started coming on with me. And this is because he keeps up our sixth show together. I mean, I love that because my guest is John Russell. And I'm going to read part of this blurb because I think it says a lot about him. John Russell stands as a distinctive voice in the realm of paranormal literature, crafting narratives that transcend the ordinary and delve into the mystic aspects of the psychic and paranormal realms. With an illustrious career that merges real-world psychic experiences with rich storytelling, Russell's works are a treasure trove for enthusiasts of the uncanny and the supernatural. And that's out of New York Weekly. The way that I usually tend to describe John is that he is one of the best raconteurs I know. He is the Mark Twain of the paranormal. His stories are brilliant. His history is brilliant. His gifts are brilliant. And if you want a reading, you can reach out to him and he will tell you how to do that. And I've not had one, but I probably will at some point because I trust him. There's not a lot of people I would say that about with my spiritual life. So let's bring on my friend, John Russell. Hi.
Kat, bless your heart. That was such a sweet, glowing introduction, and I appreciate it so much. And I appreciate your friendship. And it is our sixth time together to have an interview together. And it's always a wonderful time. We have a great conversation. We run out of time before we run out of topics.
Every time.
Every time. So I can't wait for tonight. It's going to be great. And thank you again. And thank you to everybody that's listening, watching, tuning in. And I'm not seeing the chat sidebar. I haven't set that up. So if anybody has any questions, relay them through Kat, and we'll do it that way.
We will grab them and growl. It's not a problem.
Absolutely.
And Lori Dorsey is in chat, and she is actually in Ohio, and these storms are coming that way.
Oh,
so for our Midwestern friends, be careful.
Yeah.
Just pay attention and know that we love you and appreciate you. And if you have to duck out, we'll understand.
Yeah, sending good energy that way.
Yes. So, one of the things that that I love, I found you through fate.
Yes.
And it's really cool because I feel like I would have come across your books regardless.
Yeah.
But you're a friend of the magazine. The magazine loves you.
Oh.
And Phyllis loves you. I think that one of the things that she and I both enjoy about you is your honesty and your integrity.
I appreciate that.
And I'm curious because you started out like small town kid.
Yeah.
Bicycle route.
Yeah.
Where you're in papers.
Yep.
And I'm just going to interject here that one of my friends, Brenda Grantham, was the first female bicycle news person in Alabama.
Right.
But I think that it's really neat that someone who evolved into where you are now with you're just so full of love for everything.
Yeah.
Really. If it ain't fun, you don't do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But most everything is fun to you.
It is. I love life. I love my gifts. I love my abilities. I love my hobbies, my talents, my family, my pets. I just, there's so much to be grateful for. And I don't say that from a position of privilege or a life of ease, because my life has been a very, very difficult and a very rocky life.
Yeah.
I had a very difficult childhood, grew up in a very unstable home. And I think the thing that saved me all the way through was I had this innate ability to look for and find that sunflower growing among the weeds. And instead of focusing on the weeds, I'd focus on that sunflower and let it infuse me with joy and happiness and healing. And I think that's the thing that kept me going. And so, having learned to do that from an early age, I learned that's applicable all through your life, that no matter what you face, you got to keep digging for that little small bit of joy and happiness there and holding on to it, no matter how hard that it is. And let that see you through.
You know, that is an imperative. And it's something that when you're dealing with the scenarios, it's very easy to get tugged down into the weeds.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's very interesting how different personalities, even in the same family, adapt
Yeah.
and interact.
Yes.
Because I'm a looking for the light person too. And one of my family members can't get out of the darkness.
Yeah.
And as a result, I feel like you attract, if you're in the darkness, I feel like you attract more of it to you.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's hard to, if you can't step out of it, then it tends to drag you.
It does. It absolutely does. You know, and I tell my clients that, I say, look, you can't be in a bad environment constantly with negative people doing negative things or bad things or illegal things, and thrive in that. You can't accomplish anything good in that because there's nothing good there. It's all deceit and it's all evil and it's all negative. There's nothing positive there. And you have to remove yourself from that environment. And I talk about, in my latest book that's coming out this summer, I talk about that, the fallacy of bloom where you're planted, because a lot of times you can't bloom where you're planted. You have to get yourself out of that environment and get into a more conducive environment for your well-being, for your health, for your future, for your career, for whatever you want to accomplish. And interestingly enough, I've been an avid gardener my entire life.
Yeah.
And I learned that lesson that you can't always bloom where you're planted. I learned that from gardening. And as long as I have gardened, I've gardened since I was a kid. And I've got that proverbial green thumb. I can put a stick in the ground and get it to grow.
I do not. I have a black thumb.
And in spite of all of that, you know, you always learn. You never master anything. You're always learning. Yeah. And when I was living in New York and had one of my gardens there, the other side chose some very specific things that I talk about in the book to help me to realize that lesson that, you know, bloom where you're planted is a fallacy. You can't always do that. And so I learned from that. I include it in the book. And I tell people, look, you know, there's places that you're not going to make a difference. You can be that sunflower among the weeds. The weeds may choke you out. You know,
well, it does that. I mean, It's just like if you're gardening, you know, you can have the beautiful roses, but if you're not taking care of those,
exactly,
then your garden is going to reflect the effort you put into it.
That's it. And we do have to
realize. It's not a popular thing.
Yeah. And we do have to realize that, and this is, again, is a lesson from life, and whether we like it or not, this is just the way it is. We do have to realize that there are pests and pestilence and diseases and trials and tribulations and problems that overtake us. And that's just the status quo on this planet. And if you don't believe that that's the way it is, go out and plant a garden and see what happens to that garden. And you're going to find out that every pest on the planet comes and attacks it and tries to destroy it, eat it up. And yet it's a constant battle against the pests, the bugs, and everything else.
The birds.
The birds want to come and eat what you've grown. Other critters want to come and eat what you've grown. The diseases hit the plants and try and destroy them. Sometimes they do. You know, the bug pests hit them and eat them up and cause problems. And it's a constant struggle. And so we have to realize that. And I think that transliterates then into our spiritual life and what we want to try and do. And we have to realize, hey, we're going to have these things coming against us. We're going to have these things we have to work against and resist and fight against, because that's just the way of the world.
You know, it's such an interesting time to be having this conversation.
Yeah.
I don't do politics.
Yeah, I don't either.
Not at all. But, you know, there's so much
Vitriol.
Because of the different, there's so much vitriol. And if you have vitriol and hate, and it doesn't matter who your team is, I don't give a rat's butt, because you know what? When you're in the voting booth, that's you.
Yeah.
And I don't need to know how you vote.
Right.
You don't need to know how I vote. It's my right. It's your right. It's everyone's right that's eligible to do it.
Exactly.
But we're based on having fought off all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we have fought for good across the world.
Yeah.
We will still do that, because government's not one person.
Right.
And it's so important to remember that we're all humans.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
If you liked each other, then you should still like each other.
Exactly right.
You know,
exactly right.
And I hate, because I'm a light worker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is slaying me. I can't stand all of the negativity from every side.
Yeah.
And my friend Cheryl posted today, she's a trans woman, and has been since God was a child.
Right. Right.
I mean, Vietnam era veteran.
Yeah.
And to see her feel threatened, you know.
Yeah.
I would never lose a friend over something like that.
Exactly.
And it's not my business to say if someone's fear is real or not.
Yeah.
If they feel it, it's real to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly
and
right.
I don't like people having to feel that, or feeling like it's a possibility, because that's where it is. It's a possibility.
Yeah.
You know,
and I agree with you. I see people on Facebook unfriending each other because you voted this way, or you voted that way, or you believe this, or you believe that. You know, the mark of maturity is to be able to maintain a friendship with someone that believes differently than the way that you do, and to accept that person. And unless they're doing something that's going to harm you physically or something, you know, let them have their belief. You have your belief. Sit down and discuss it. Without coming,
just go to dinner.
Yeah, go to dinner.
I mean, you don't have to discuss
or you don't even have to discuss it. Just remain friends and just go on. You know, a lot of the time, you're not going to change each other's minds. So, you know, if you had a friendship before and you value that friendship, keep that friendship and keep moving forward. And I think the thing that really hurts me at this stage of the game, because I'm obviously a light worker like you are, and what really is destroying the fabric of our nation right now is this: we don't have a discourse, and we don't have a discussion, and we don't even really have an argument. We just have verbal attacks.
And physical.
You know? Yeah, and physical. And the verbal attacks are, well, you believe this way, you're an effing idiot, or you voted this way, you're an effing idiot, and blah, blah, blah. And there's no content to it. There's no rationale to it. There's no reason to it. Well, why am I this idiot? You know, well, because, and they probably couldn't give you an answer, you know, and it's like, and I get tickled that there are guys that go around and do this for both parties, that interview people that are believing so staunchly in one thing or one way. And they interview them and they say, okay, why do you believe this? And the people don't know. Well, what has this person done in regard to such and such and such and such that you support them or oppose them? I don't know, you know, and it just amazes me that people will absolutely rise up in arms over something that they can't even articulate what they believe and why they believe it, you know? So it's, you know, we have to get over, and I was talking to my wife the other day. I said, you know, the older I get, and the more I look at things psychically, and the more I look at things from life experience, the more I see how tribal the entire earth is. And that's our challenge to overcome. And one of the things that I on Facebook, one of the things that I get that I subscribe to is this thing called Japan Inside. And it's from Japan. It comes from Japan. And it talks about life in Japan, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, we look at Japan as a model of a perfect society sometimes, with how it runs and how it works and its efficiency and this, that, and the other. The trains are always on time. If it's a second late, they apologize. Everything's clean and so on and so
A
forth.
far cry from New York on the train.
Yeah. And yet in Japan Inside, they said that there are elderly women in Japan committing crimes, hoping they can go to jail because they can't afford to live and they can't afford food and they don't have enough money. And so rather than be homeless, they're committing crimes, hoping to get arrested so they'll have a place to sleep and they'll have food and so on and so forth. And then
that's tragic.
It's tragic. And then in the same Japan Inside, they were talking about there were people, Americans that have lived there and people from other countries that have lived there for an extensive amount of time. And they were talking about the bigotry and the prejudice that there are against other races in Japan from the Japanese people. And the fact that I think one of the things was the Japanese don't even consider, I believe it was Koreans, they don't even consider them to be human, literally, and vice versa, and all this stuff. And it was talking about the people in Japan. One person said, we lived there, we learned the language, we learned the customs, and we were getting off the elevator, and there were some Japanese nationals there, and they were American, Australian, French, whatever they were, that had lived there and had learned the language and everything. And they said, go ahead. And the Japanese people said, no, go ahead. And they said, oh, thank you very much. And they said, as they walked away, they heard the Japanese people making fun of them saying what they said in Japanese in a mocking manner, So all over this world, we have this tribalism.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we have to overcome. And that's what kills us locally and nationally and worldwide.
Yes.
We have to find some way to overcome this tribalism and this mocking of each other and this making fun of each other and this denigrating each other. And it's been around for a long time. We think it's a recent phenomenon, but it's not. We're just more aware of it because of the internet.
Well, because we're globally connected.
We're globally connected. And now we're aware of that. We're aware of, it was there too. But you go back through history and you study history. And there was a woman that wrote a book on this because people were talking about, my God, the horrible mudslinging that occurs during presidential campaigns. And this woman wrote a book and went way back to the earliest presidents that we elected, all the way on up, and said that, look, this is nothing new.
It is not.
Way back in the day, people were calling each other horrible names and making horrible accusations against each other. So unfortunately, this is a state of the human affairs. And that's one of the things that we wrestle against. But I think that now, with the advent of the internet and with the ability to communicate so rapidly,
without thinking,
without analyzing, without sitting down and asking, is this true or not? I think that exacerbates the problem. And I see this with my friends online, and they will instantly, if it falls within their purview, and by purview, I mean their tribe. Yeah. And if it's something that falls within that purview, they will immediately share it without bothering to see if it's true or not.
Yes.
And I go online and I choose several sources and I research it. And then I go back and I say, hey, no, this is not real. This is clickbait. This is false. Da, 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 da. But it seems like that it's an uphill battle because it seems like people are, more willing to believe the lie than the truth. And
because the lie feeds their narrative. No matter what side of the coin, the lie feeds the narrative.
Exactly right. Exactly
right. I think a lot of it comes back to the, everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah.
There's no winners. There's no losers. There's no dealing with the emotions that come with having lost a tournament. There's no,
right.
Having to deal with having been cut from a team or, or
exactly.
whatever, choose your
Yeah,
experience. But
yeah,
I know that I see a lot of the same behavior here that I have seen in mothers of other children
yeah.
in sports environments
Oh yeah,
and stuff
oh yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And it's really interesting, including when I was a kid,
Hmm.
those parents too. It seems to have begun with the um, late 70s
Yeah.
into the 80s. I graduated high school in 80.
Hmm.
And it was becoming prevalent there
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
part of the world.
Right.
And I feel like with my abilities, I feel like it's going to get much worse before it gets much better.
Yeah.
And that concerns me.
Yeah.
I have
Absolutely.
grandchildren. I mean,
Absolutely.
I want a
Yeah.
good world.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
And
until people,
the sad thing is, excuse me, the sad thing is that it spills over into the spiritual community and the
it
paranormal community
does.
because people make these snap judgments and these invalid judgments, and
Yeah.
it becomes a very tribal thing. And, people wind up supporting the cult of personality instead
Yeah.
of looking for the truth, you know?
That's a good choice of words.
Yeah. And it's like I had one interview I was just on. I'm always telling people just don't comprehend this. And I tell people, look, if you want to have a seance, you don't have to go into a locked, darkened room
Yeah.
where the medium tells you you cannot stand up, you cannot get out of your chair, you cannot turn on the lights, you cannot turn on your flashlight, you cannot go to the bathroom, you cannot open the door until I say the all clear. And I tell people the reason that they do that is because they have you trapped in an environment in the dark where then they can get up with their infrared goggles and they can run around with an atomizer. One case I investigated, they did this.
Get out
Run
of
around with
town.
an atomizer, spraying you, and the water falls down on you, mist down on you. You go, oh, I just had a spiritual contact. I just had a spiritual touch. And then
You are
another,
kidding me.
no, I'm not kidding you. And another thing they did,
Oh my.
these little small toy pianos, like you get at, you know, a
Yes.
outlet store or whatever, some variety store, and they're little toy battery powered pianos. And they had one of those in the same seance. And what they would do is go for yes and for no. So it was laying on a table in the middle of the circle before they turned the lights out. And they said, now, when you ask the spirit a question, it'll go, up for yes and down for no. And of course, what they did is they went with their motion sensor, their night vision goggles, picked the little piano up, and then they did the thing when people would ask questions.
Oh
Oh, yeah.
my word.
Yeah. So there's all these, um, you know, fake things that people do in seances. And the reason they tell you, oh, you can't get up, you can't turn on the light, you can't open the door, you can't use your cell phone because I'm exuding ectoplasm and the light's dangerous to me and it'll cause the ectoplasm to go rushing back into me and I could die. So that's the justification they give you, right?
No.
So I was exposing that in this interview, and people were going like, well, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that it's, and I'm
Just
like,
because you don't understand.
I'm exposing you to you and telling you what I've investigated and what I know these phonies do. I've investigated tons of these phonies, and I can tell you exactly how they operate and exactly what they do. And these people are just almost like justifying it, like, well, just because you don't do it that way or because you don't understand it, it's like you're missing that. You haven't heard a word I said, have you?
Well,
You know,
because it's not feeding their narrative. They are
it's not
blocking
feeding their
it.
narrative. It's not feeding their narrative. And so we
And
have so much of that in the spiritual realm, the paranormal realm, to get over. And like I've told people, I said, you go to a lot of these fake psychics, and what they do is stage magic. It's
mhm.
sleight of hand magic. And I know this because I'm a member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians. I love card magic. Have since I was a
Oh,
kid. And
that's
I've
because it's
studied magic
fun.
since I was a kid. So I know what these frauds are doing and I know how they're doing it. But if you don't know how they're doing it, to you, it looks like a legitimate miracle. And so that's the difficulty in trying to get through to people and say, no, 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 this is not real. This is fake. Here's how they're doing it. But, and it's like, but they had a bowl of eggs on the table and I could choose any egg out of that bowl. And the egg I chose had this hideous gunk in it when they broke it open. And I can tell them exactly how they do it. And they still won't divorce themselves from that person. They'll, well, I don't think that was the way it happened, or and then they told me this, or they told it's like, oh my God, what have I got to do here? So it's this unreal uphill battle.
Well, I'm sure it is. I mean, it's really interesting. We have Lori Dorsey in chat. Lori happens to be my best friend, and she goes to
Hi, Lori.
psychics. She likes to have past life readings.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that, hey, Tom McNicholas, that we have been together in almost every past life.
Mm-hmm.
We switch genders out. Sometimes we're the same gender. Sometimes one of us is a guy, whatever. And sometimes we're both guys. And it's just so interesting because I feel that every time that she does something, when she comes back, it resonates.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, yeah, that sounds like us. But I worry sometimes because I know a lot of psychics.
Yeah.
And I have my own set of abilities that are not nearly as honed as they could be. When I hit menopause, I kind of started letting go a little bit. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't need to know everything at this point.
Right.
But it's really an interesting moment when I worry about, well, what if we go to somebody, or she goes to somebody that, she doesn't know, or any of my friends. I'm just picking on Lori because she's right there, but, and because we talk about these things, but
we like Lori.
Yeah, that she's, she knows the people that she talks to about these things. And I think about people that just randomly, this state psychics that's on the internet, and you call and get all whatever. I know women and men who have worked for them that I would not give 2 cents for their abilities.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Because I know them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there working very hard to make people like you not be trusted so much.
Exactly right.
Until they talk to you.
Exactly right.
I mean, you are the real deal.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who are.
Yeah.
I am for my life. I don't try to share it for somebody else's, but it saved my life more times than not.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's really wild to see how many people feel like they need to be going out and be known to be psychic, to be whatever. That don't have the skills.
Exactly right. That's one of the things that I've wrestled with for years and years, trying to get people to understand. You can read a book on how to read the tarot cards and do a couple of readings for your friends and family, and then you hang out your shingle and say you're a psychic and a tarot reader and you're ready to do it professionally. And when I started reading, I've read professionally now for over 50 years. When I discovered my psychic gift, I was like 6 years old. And by the time I was around 10 or 12, I had sufficient reading ability and comprehension that I was reading things like William James, The Variety of Religious Experience, at the age of friggin' 10 or 12, right?
Yeah.
And so I studied everything on the planet that I could. I exposed myself to every experience that I could. I started reading for friends and family without charge when I was around 15, 16. And then by the time I turned 18, I began to read professionally, and I continued my education. I continued to study, and I've studied my entire life, investigated, explored. Is it real? Is it not? Does it work? Does it not? So on and so forth. How do I make this better? How can I do this better? So on and so forth. So this has been for me. Now, I just turned 71 this month. And this has been for me that long of a lifetime of exploration. And I'm not even close to getting where I need to be. I'm not even close to being a master. I've got so much more that I can learn and so much more that I can do. So to see these people that dabble in it and then proclaim themselves professional, it just angers me no end. And I see people that will say, their argument is based on what they've heard somebody say. Maybe somebody that's supposedly famous in the paranormal community said this or quoted this or wrote this down, and that's their sole knowledge of anything. And they quote that and they throw it around like the mantle of truth. And if you go to them and say, no, listen, da 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 da, and you lay it out logically and sequentially for them with some proof, thrown in. No, the big guy says da 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 da, so you got to be wrong. It goes back to the cult of personality again, and it's so frustrating to try and get people away from these things. And over the years, I have had to rescue people and rescue some of my own clients from phony psychics that they went to for whatever reason that conned them out of tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes $50,000, $100,000. $150,000, $250,000. And, it's like, it's so frustrating to try and get the truth into people that they just don't want to accept it. I remember I had this, when I was in New York, I had this one client that became a repeat client for a while. And then he went to some other psychic. And it frustrates me. People do this. One moment I had as an aside, one moment I had as a client, she let it slip one time that I was one of 7 psychics that she regularly consulted. She had a psychic for money, a psychic for romance, a psychic for sex, a psychic for travel, a psychic. I was like, my God, no wonder you're confused when you come to me. It's like, holy cow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of those can be addressed.
Yeah.
I don't even know 7 psychics. I with what I do, I don't know 7 psychics I would trust to be feeding me.
This guy, this client I had gone to another psychic for whatever reason, and he had fallen under her spell. And she told him that I was an ancient demon and that I had it gets better. That I had been with him through thousands of years of incarnations, and that I had followed him and tormented him, and that I had come in this incarnation as a psychic to connect with him again and to mislead him and to misguide him and on and on and on. So, and this guy had wrote me this in an email. And so I can't come to you anymore. I can't, So I called him and I said, listen, for Christ's sake, listen. And I told him, I said, this woman is a fake and a phony and a fraud, and she's misleading you. And this is the stupidest thing that I've ever heard uttered out of anybody's mouth. Don't fall for this nonsense. His response, she's the real deal. I believe everything that she told me. I believe that you're this ancient demon that keeps cursing my life and all this on
He's
and
been
on.
coming to you?
Yeah.
And that's
so I was like, okay, whatever.
Oh,
so I can't remember how many months went by. And he sent me an email. He didn't call, but he sent me an email. And he said, John, he said, every single thing that you've ever talked to me about in a reading has been accurate, and every single thing that you predicted has come true, has been accurate. And every single thing you told me about this woman that I didn't want to believe and didn't want to hear has been the total, complete, absolute truth. And she's been the biggest fake and the biggest phony and the biggest fraud and conned me and taken advantage of me. And he said, you, sir, are everything that you've ever said you were. And he said, for a psychic, that's a pretty good recommendation. I can recommend that. And everything you've told me has been truthful and honest and right. And she was everything you said she was, that she was a fraud and a fake and a phony. And so, yeah, I didn't write the guy back and say, I told you so. I just said, I'm glad that you came to this understanding, got out from under her spell. But
Because it is a spell.
yeah, it astonishes me that people gravitate toward and fall under the spell of these phonies. And I just don't get it. I just don't understand it. There are plenty, and people will argue this next point with me, and argue this with people all the time. It's like Stanton Friedman once said, there's an embarrassment of riches of physical evidence of UFO visitation on this planet. And I can transliterate that and say there's an embarrassment of proof that the paranormal exists and that psychic powers exist. We have the Rhine Institute. We have Stanford Research Institute. We have Project Stargate. We have the stuff our own government has admitted, and on and on and on and on. And in spite of that, you can go to people and say, look, there is proof that this is real. There is proof that there is something valid here that you can connect with and use in a positive way. But no, they're going to run off down the street to the guy who wears a dress, has a snake wrapped around his neck, and sets his hair on fire for the reading. And he's going to tell them the most outrageous thing on the planet. And that's what they're going to believe. And that's what they're going to want. And that's what they're going to run with. And they'll bitch about paying me $125 for a reading. They'll give him $1,000 and not bat an eye, you know? And it's like, I just don't get it.
I don't either. I'm going to share Tom McNicholas, who is a good friend of the show, said on TV and conferences, it's not what you know rather than who you know. Yeah. Rather than who you know. I only had 2 readings at events that I can say were close and specific to me.
Yeah.
And he goes to a lot of events.
Yeah.
And he's
it's the cult of personality.
It is the cult of personality.
It's very, very frustrating. And over the years, and I think I may have given you this example before, I can't remember for sure, but I had one set of clients, and I usually do not read for 2 people at the same time because my readings tend to be very intimate, very explicit, and there may be things that even a husband doesn't want his wife knowing about him or whatever, and so on and so forth. Excuse me, but pardon me. Allergy season is knocking me out.
It is, yes.
Oh my God. Too. But these 2 ladies came to me. They were friends. And the greatest compliment ever paid to me was they said, we've got a situation. We have to know the truth. We have to get accurate guidance. It has to be right. Can't mislead us. Who are we going to call? John. So that was the greatest,
that is a huge compliment.
Yeah, that's the greatest compliment I could ever get. So they were regular clients for a long, long time. And one day they called and said, we have a friend who's going through some problems with her marriage, and we're recommending you to her, and she's going to call and get a reading from you. And I said, okay. So the lady called, and I told her, I said, your marriage is done. I said, it's over. He's moved on, and you need to prepare to move on. There's no fixing it. There's no saving it. It's over. It's done. Da 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 da. So I told her several other things in the reading, and she kept circling back to that and said, "Are you really feel sure? Do you really feel confident that my marriage is over?" And I said, "Yeah, take it to the bank, 100%. And she didn't seem angry, and she didn't seem overly upset or anything. We ended the call, ended the reading on a good note, I thought. And several weeks later, the friends called me, and they said, "John, we got to talk to you about so-and-so's reading." I said, "I can't do that. That's confidential. I can't tell you what I discussed with her in the reading." They said, No. We're not asking you for information. We're going to give you information." And that's like, what in the world is going on? What are you talking about?
Oh, dear.
So she said, well, in your reading, she told us the contents of the reading. She said, in your reading, you told her that the marriage was over. It was done with. There was no reconciliation, no hope of fixing it. Move on, da, 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 da. And she said she was livid. I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "We got off the phone in good terms as far as I knew." She didn't have a hostile tone of voice. She was very pleasant, very nice. She said, "Oh, John," she got off. She was livid. And she said, "John, we're not exaggerating for effect. We literally kept count. And I know it was at least 10. It may have been more. I think it was more, but I can be safe if I go with 10. She said,
Okay.
John, she called at least 10 other psychics. Are you ready for that? At least 10 other psychics. And every single one of them told her, oh, no, this guy is wrong. He's a fraud. He's a phony. He's not seeing correctly. Your marriage is salvageable. You and your husband are going to get back together. You've got a long, happy life together. And she said, John, he filed for divorce this week.
Oh, my word.
So
Oh,
it's like, it's so frustrating when you've got something that you know is right, and you're up against these people that for whatever reason get these weird holds on people. And I guess part of it is maybe they tell them what they want to hear,
that's a lot of it. Because
Yeah,
nobody wants to concede.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
If it's everybody has a different ox, right?
exactly.
And if it's
Exactly.
not your ox that's being gored, you can just wander off. But if it's
Yeah,
your ox
yeah,
that's being gored, you're gonna do stuff.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's I
And I've,
mean,
I've had people that over the years, there's a lady on Amazon that left me a horrible, scathing review of my books and me as a person and as a psychic in my reading because I wouldn't tell her what she wanted to hear. And I kept telling her in the reading, she said, oh, I've got this handled. And I said, no, you don't. Listen to me and pay attention to me because you need to do this, 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 and this. And it flew up her nose and she hated it so bad. She went to Amazon, give me every bad review that she could.
oh my
I had one
gosh.
lady one time and she called me up and she was just dead set that she was going to go in this direction in her life and make it work. And it was going to make her rich and famous and everything else. And Spirit told me absolutely clearly, beyond any shadow of a doubt, this is not your path. This is not going to work. This is a path to failure. It's not going to succeed. You need to go in this direction instead. And she got so mad at me. And she was like, that's not what I want to hear. Let's get some real psychic power going here. Tell me what I want to hear. Tell me what I need to know. And I'm like, ma'am, I
The
can't
real
because it
psychic
would be a
power is
lie.
telling you the truth.
Yeah.
Oh my
It's like,
goodness. And
yeah, it's like,
that's got to be so difficult from your side.
it is
Okay,
extremely,
because
extremely
you
difficult, extremely difficult. And then you deal with the vagaries of things and
yes.
readings. Like I had one girl call me up one time, and I said, "I'm getting a picture of your father. I'm pretty sure it's your father, but he's not deceased. He's still alive." And I described him. And she said, "Yeah, that's my father to a T." And I said, "Well, you're having financial difficulty. You're knocking heads with your dad over money." And I said, I think specifically about a trust fund. Do you have a trust fund? No. I said, okay. I said, you arguing with your dad about money? No. Okay. So I tried to get into the reading. The other side would not let me progress. And I finally told her, I said, look, this will just keep coming back again and again. They're telling me that this is a money issue. You're knocking heads with your dad over a trust fund. I cannot go any further in the reading till we address this. So she takes this big deep breath and she sighs and she goes, all right, yes, that is my father. And we are knocking heads over my trust fund. But that's not what I want to talk about. That's like,
Well,
hello, hello. It's like, oh my God. And then I had one client one time. Um, her mother brought her to me. Her mother had been a client of mine, got a reading. She said, told her daughter, she said, oh God, you got to go to John. And like I say, I usually don't let two people come in at the same time, but she asked if she could sit in on the daughter's reading. And for some bizarre reason, I said, yeah, that'd be fine. Okay. And it was a good thing I did. So we're sitting there during the reading, and her daughter was involved with this guy. And I said, listen, the key to understanding this guy, you have to understand this is not a suit and tie guy. He's not an office guy. He'll never be behind a desk. He has to be outdoors. He has to be active. He has to be out in the open. And she goes, no, 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 no. That's not right. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, he's not a suit and tie type of guy. He would never be in an office behind a desk. He's got to be outdoors, free and open doing something. And her mother looked at her bug-eyed, and I looked at her bug-eyed, and her mother said, did you hear what John just said? And she went, what? And she said, that's exactly what John just said. And she goes, oh, you did? It's like, So
What?
things get wild during readings.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it gets frustrating, and it's bizarre to overcome. It gets really
That one's
strange.
bizarre.
It is. It's really strange. Oh, the best one. The best one. I talked to this guy one time. I said, I'm seeing your son on the other side. Is your son deceased? He said, no. I said, your son's not dead? He's not crossed over? No. I said, well, I'm seeing this great big huge gulf between the two of you, this vast distance between the two of you. And to me, that indicates he's on the other side. No. Well, are you apart, like physically, like is he in another country or something like that? No. Okay. So I go in with the reading, and he's fine with the rest of the reading. I keep going back to his son. Nope, son's not dead. And we get to the end of the reading. I say, well, okay, before we wrap up, is there anything else? He said, yeah, I wish you'd have been able to tune in and spend more time talking about my dead son.
What?
Swear to God. Swear to God. I'm like, okay, I think I'll go get a beer now.
Or two.
Or 2 or 3 or 10.
Oh,
It's
good
like,
heavens.
oh my God. Oh yeah, it's just all kinds of bizarre things that you go through. And then the people that really connect with the accuracy of the reading that you've given them, it may scare them so bad they never come back. I had this one guy, a new client, and we were doing the reading. Everything was going along fine. And I said, hold on. I said, your mom's coming through. I said, your mom's deceased, didn't she? And he said, yeah. I said, your mom's coming to me. And I described her. And he said, yeah, that's my mama. And I said, hang on a minute. And I got this name. And I'm not real good with names usually. And I got this name. And I didn't trust it. I didn't believe it because it was so bizarre. It was something like Beluga Macaluda or something. I mean, it wasn't that, but it was bizarre.
Right.
It was just this name that nobody would have. And the other side kept pounding it to me, pounding it to me, pounding it to me. I said, oh God, okay, what the hell? What have I got to lose? So I said, I'm getting your mom's name, and your mom was, and I gave him this bizarre, weird, offbeat name. And just total, complete silence to the point that I thought the line went dead. And I said, hello? Nothing. I mean, you couldn't hear a thing. And I thought, God, I guess the call dropped. I said, hello? I said, I guess the call's dropping. If you can hear me, I can't hear you. I'm going to call you back. And real softly, he said, I'm here. I said, oh, okay. I thought I lost you. Things got so quiet. I said, what's the matter? What is it? He said, that's my mama's name. And never called me again. It was like, oh my God, this stuff's real.
I know, right?
It's like, yeah, so you deal with so many bizarre things when you do what I do that I could write a book just about that, I guess.
Well, I mean, that would be an encouraging book for some.
Yeah.
Because, I do not have your level of skill sets.
Yeah.
And it's so weird because random people that I don't know come up and ask me for a reading.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't do that.
Right.
And they're like, well, yes, you do.
Yeah, you do.
And I want you to help me with this. And I'm like, I'm not your girl.
Yeah.
And the worst part is that once somebody asks me for that, I get so antsy. And it's just like, tap or wiggle,
Yep.
It gets to me.
Yeah.
And things come.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, and there was one that I did not want to say what had, come from me because it sounded so rude.
Right.
And so I had to say it because I wasn't going to sleep for the next year if I didn't just say something, right?
I understand.
So I did it, and I said what I heard, and it was so rude. I thought it was so rude. And the person was ecstatic.
Yeah.
Because it was so accurate.
Yeah. Oh, that's them. Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah, you always got to be true to the message. You've always.
But I wasn't looking to give a message.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I do
Mhm.
have skills.
Mhm.
I mean, and they come in useful for protecting me.
Yeah.
But if somebody asks, I don't really have a choice.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a very strange thing.
It is.
Is
Yeah.
that something that happens to people that talk to you?
As far as them coming to me for,
Well, no. I mean, as far
or-
as when, because people talk to you about your abilities all the time. You're on all
yeah,
kinds of shows.
yeah,
But has anyone, does that happen to people where they're kind of bullied into giving a reading or I mean, it
yeah.
feels like that.
I think the other side will push you through whatever circumstances to develop your gift to the level they want you to develop it. And so they'll send you challenging situations. They'll send you challenging people. They'll send you people that say, "Yes, you are. You're my girl. You gotta do this."
You have
So
to, and she wasn't going away.
yeah, and
I
that's
mean,
part of, I always tell people, I say, look, we have things in life lessons we have to learn, gifts and abilities, talents we have to develop, whatever they are. And spirit is going to keep pushing us in that direction through whatever means necessary until we acquiesce and go, okay, here I am. I'll do this. I'll do the dance. I'll play the instrument. I'll sing the song. I'll do the reading. Whatever it is. And it's very common, really, for spirit to push us that way. And the
okay.
more we push it away or try and get away from it, they'll bring it back around over and over and over again.
Well, and
Until,
this was in a location where I was going to have to go back,
yeah,
and the girl worked there.
yeah,
And it was just kind of like, so, and I do I've always, my intuition
hmm
is so spot on. It
hmm
saved my life a bunch of different
oh
times.
yeah, yeah, absolutely,
But,
absolutely,
and I trust it for me,
yeah,
but to trust it to tell somebody something that might hurt their feelings or
right,
might cause them to make a life decision that I don't want to be responsible for
yeah.
is
Well, that's
something
what you
else.
that's what you have to do through experience. The more you exercise that gift, and the more you connect with it and learn to trust those answers.
Well, I
That's
trust him implicitly. For me, it's just giving
yeah.
them to somebody
And that's
else.
that's what you've got to learn to be able to do for other people, and that just comes through doing, like I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of readings, and through that process early on, I learned, okay, this is not me imagining something. This is not what I wish would happen for the person. This is not my emotion. This is what spirit is telling me for them. And then I learned that I could trust that. And then when people would validate everything I was seeing in the reading, that just helped me build on that and build upon that foundation. And then when my predictions for their futures happened, as I said that they would, and jillions of clients have told me that over the years, then I learned, okay, I can trust that. I can do that. And if it's something that I have a feeling that I'm not connecting 100% with something about, I'll tell them that. I'll say, hey, I feel like 70, 80% chance here of this. But if it's something I know I can take to the bank and they can take to the bank, I'll tell them that way. Say, look, this is coming. This is going to happen. And I had, it was a real funny incident like that. One of the readings I did, the lady that processed the credit cards for me, her company that she worked for, she called me and she said, I've never had a reading and I'd like to get a reading. I said, oh man, I'm honored. Great. So I gave her this reading, and through the reading, everything I was telling her was blowing her hair back. So we got down to the end of the reading, and I said, three things are going to happen here that you really need to take note of. I said, one, you're going to move to Nevada, I think Las Vegas. And I believe that's what I told her. I know Nevada, but I think I told her Las Vegas. It's been a long time ago. And I said, the second thing is you're going to start your own credit card processing company. And the third thing is you're going to make more money than you've ever made in your life. And she started guffawing. She started laughing. I said, what? She said, John, everything you've told me up till now has blown my hair back. It's really impressed me. But she said, you are so off the rails here. You've gone so far out in left field with this. She said, I hate Nevada. I would never move there. She said, to connect with with and who I need to connect with to start my own business in this field would take way more connection, way more money, everything else that I have access to, and I'm pretty much topped out for earnings in my field. I said, write this down and then holler at me down the road. He said, okay, but I'm telling you, hon, you missed it on this one. I said, okay. So several months later, I got a phone call from her. She said, John, I moved to Nevada.
No.
I've started my own credit card processing company. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life. I said, awesome, awesome, awesome. She said, yeah. But she said, you know, I totally, completely forgot you told me all that. And after all this came about, my girlfriend said, didn't that psychic you got the reading from tell you this was all going to happen this way? And she was like, oh, yeah, I totally forgot. So, like, you know, people think readings and everything are so cut and dried, and that people are like, oh, wow, and they remember everything, they're impressed by everything. No, sadly, not the case. I wish that it were, but sadly, not the case. So.
Well, I swear, it's so funny because I don't get readings. I mean, I don't. I would trust you. I would come to you and get one.
Yeah.
Not yet. I just, because.
Well, you get the guidance you need from yourself, from your guides and everything else. That's what you need. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny because I asked for my spirit guide's name. Mm-hmm. Somebody had told me, ask them to give it to you right as you're waking up. And that way you're still kind of betwixt and between. And I got a word and I was like, what the hell was that? I don't know what that is. So it was so funny because I was just like, that's not even a word. Mm-hmm. And so I Googled it. I typed in every different way I could think to spell it. Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Yeah.
And so 3 different times I did this, right? Can you please give it to me right as I'm waking up where I can still hear you, but I'll retain it. 3 different times, the same word that wasn't a word. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is so weird. Mm-hmm. I can't find this word. I don't know the meaning of this word. It doesn't sound like a name.
Right.
And so I was I just let it go. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm just not hearing it right. So I guess it was 8 years later. My dad's best friend is from Brussels. Well, they're both passed now, but John was from Brussels, and my dad loved to go, and they would vacation in France and go see his family and whatever.
Right.
And there's a park in Brussels, and that's the name of that park.
Oh, wow.
It's the only place I've ever heard that word.
I love it.
And so I'm like, okay, so that is a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And and I've never said it. I'm going to put it out right now. I'm so sorry I doubted you. Yeah. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And, so I mean, seriously, I thought, well, that's very similar to a native tribe's name. Mm-hmm. And nope, that's not it. And then I'm like, well, okay. But we are at the top of the hour, but I want to let people know that we're giving away a copy of Fate magazine, and it's an older one. They're gorgeous.
Yeah,
if you've seen Fate magazine, our covers are stellar. I mean,
they are
fantastic. And I have some because I've taken, I've only done one so far, but I'm going to periodically be doing readings from the magazine for my shows because they're such great stories. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not even stories. They're real. Mm-hmm. But so if you want to win one tonight, if you're in X, there's not a chat. I'm sorry, you can't get to the chat from there. You can go to the LinkedIn. You can go to Facebook on the Bill of Rights Network, where we are live. You can go to LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn has the chat. And all of these are posted. You can go to YouTube. You can go to YouTube, Fate Mag Radio channel. You can go to the Kat Hobson channel. You can go to the WBHM-DB channel. So that's my network that I own. So you can do all of those things and get into chat. And the hashtag is hashtag MAG, M-A-G, hashtag MAG. and that will enter you for a drawing at the end of the show. The computer does it, so it's not the least bit rigged. I was worried about that because I didn't know how it worked, and Carl has educated me. He's so brilliant. So that's going to work perfectly. And maybe you will be getting one of those because they're really pretty. We have some with
They are.
dolphins. We have, I, I think I have an original edition, the first one. So just give a holler, put it in there, hashtag mag, and you're entered. So I wanted to talk to you about, I mean, because you are on everybody. You know, you're doing shows left and right.
Done a lot of interviews. I've done over 200 in the past 4 years.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And, I know that you've been on with George. You're on Coast to Coast, and
Yeah.
I just love him. That
Yeah,
is one of the best interviewers ever. And
yeah, I've
his
been on with
producer,
George, let's see, 13 times now.
at least, yeah. But is it 13?
Yeah.
Because I try to catch those, but sometimes I have to catch them in the
In the archives, yeah.
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 But that says a lot because his producer, Tommy, is really pretty keen on you.
Yeah, bless his heart. I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, Tom. Yeah, he's a great guy. Bless his heart.
He is one of the nicest men. But you're everywhere.
Yeah.
And if people wanted to reach out to you, do you have time to do the readings that are coming to you?
Well, it's about anywhere from a 3 to 6 month wait.
Okay.
So that's the standard, about a 3 to 6 month wait. So new clients are always welcome. I have repeat clients that I deal with, but new clients are always welcome. But it is about a 3 to 6 month wait.
I was just curious because I know how busy you are because you're really getting a lot of coverage and you're really good.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you. Bless your heart. I appreciate it. It. Yeah. Do a lot of interviews, do the readings and writing the books and still writing the books, even though I've got this new one coming out. There's more to come in the years to come. So really enjoy those. That's a way to leave a legacy and to help people, teach people, reach people. And, I get some really great feedback about the books. And one of the most amazing things I got the other day, and this is why I write these books. This lady wrote me, sent me an email and said, my mom bought your first book, Writing with Ghost Angels and the Spirits of the Dead, bought it as a gift for me 5 years ago. And I just wasn't into this space. I just wasn't believing in this. I didn't want to read it. I didn't believe in it, didn't want to deal with it. So I just packed it away. And she said, the other day, after all these years, I was going through stuff and I found your book. And I'm more receptive to that now, more open to that now. So she said, well, okay, I'll take this out and I'll put it on my bookshelf. I need to read it. I'll get to it. And she said, almost every single day, your book would appear on the floor in front of my door. And I would pick it up and I would put it back on the bookshelf. And the next day it would be on the floor in front of my door. And this happened repeatedly. And she said, so I took that as a sign. Spirit wants me to read this book. I need to read this book. And she said, I started reading the book and I actually began to have some of the exact same experiences that you did in the book. And that let me know that this is all something that is very real. It's an important part of my life now. And thank you for writing this book. So that's why I write these books. But it was just so awesome to, I'd put this book on my shelf. It'd be on the floor in front of my door. I'd put it back on the shelf. It'd be on the floor in front of my door. So this is why I write these books. Let people know.
I have to ask you, when she let you know that, did you direct her to your other book, 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities?
Yeah.
Because that would be the next step.
Yeah, that would be the next step. Yeah. So she's aware of the books, and that's why I write those books. And it's a beautiful legacy to leave. It's a beautiful gift to have and a beautiful thing to share. And man, when you get somebody that gets it and it makes an impact in their life and they write to you about it, it's a really good feeling, a really great thing. Oh, I have to say one thing though.
What's that?
when you were talking about the word that made no sense. I had ordered, there was a company that's out of business now. I still have the board, but they're out of business now. And when I was living in New York, and this is decades ago, this this new Ouija board company started up. And I said, oh God, I've got to have one of these boards. Now, for everybody that's listening that instantly blanked out, oh God, Ouija boards, you're going to get an attachment. You're going to open a portal to hell. The devil's going to come get you, blah, blah, blah. No, read my book, 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities. I have a whole chapter on the Ouija board. Listen, if you're afraid of using the Ouija board, then you should be afraid of tarot cards and pendulums and crystal balls and dowsing rods and everything else. You're not. It's the same motive energy you're using with those things that you use with the Ouija board. So get over the Ouija board thing. So anyways, I ordered this new Ouija board. And the house that we lived in at the time, we had all these windows. It's a colonial style house. So we had all these windows on the first and the second floor that faced the street. So you could see all the way across the street, up and down the street, everything else. So I was futzing around, and I was between clients and had a little time, and I heard the doorbell ring. So I went downstairs and looked out the door. Nobody was there. No delivery vehicles. The street was virtually bare. There was no foot traffic. This was kind of early in the day, maybe a little bit before midday, so not a lot of activity. It was a small town. And I thought, well, maybe it's somebody pranking me. So I opened the door, stepped outside, looked all around outside. Nobody's around. I said, okay, whatever. But the doorbell definitely rang, and I'm used to all this spirit activity anyways. I've had these thousands of physical paranormal manifestations and a lot there. And so I said, well, okay, whatever. So I said, hey, guys, and went back in, closed the door, locked the door up, walked into the kitchen, which was a short way away to get something, walked back down the hall toward the front door, and there, balanced on the front step, vertically like this, not on its side or not laying flat, but balanced vertically on one of the lower steps, was this box that contained the Ouija board. Now, you know, the box is like this, and like, you know, yay high and yay wide and all this, and it's sitting there perfectly balanced on its short end on the step. Wind hadn't blown it over, hadn't seen anybody come. This was seconds after the doorbell rang and nobody was there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what in God's name is this? And I went out and got the box, and it was the Ouija board. I was like, holy cow, that's an arrival. That's an appearance.
Yes.
Excuse me. So I take it upstairs and unbox it, and welcome it to my home, and start to use it. So start getting gibberish right away. And people who use Ouija boards know that sometimes that's not uncommon. And I said, okay, you got to settle down here. You got to communicate with me in a way I can understand. And it very forcefully starts going to these exact same letters that are just friggin' gibberish. I was like, okay, this ain't cutting it. We gotta, no, you gotta give me something I can work with here. Give me something I can understand. So now I put my fingers back on the planchette and forcefully, like, it goes back to these exact same letters, and it's gibberish. I'm like, yeah. So I get this inspiration, and I write down the letters that it gives me. And it's just gibberish. It's a bunch of consonants and very few vowels and everything. And I'm like, okay. And I'm staring at it and looking at it like, what are you trying to tell me here? What do you want me to figure out of this mess? And all of a sudden I get this inspiration, go online and enter these words, enter these letters, enter these words. I do. And it's Latin.
Oh my goodness.
And it translates for me to go and buy a specific type of incense. And I look up this incense, and the psychic, the spiritual properties of this incense meet exactly a need that I had at that specific time to burn this incense to attract this spiritual quality into my life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then after that, it started talking to me in English. But first, it went through that. It was like, Okay. So when you get gibberish words or what you think is nonsense, hang on to them, because it may be like with Kat, it may take several months, or it might be like with me, it comes just almost instantaneously. But a lot of times you will get that information, that translation, whatever it is you need, or whatever reference is there. So when you get things that you don't immediately understand, hang on to them.
Well, you have to. I mean,
Yeah.
because I knew it kept happening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
So
I think that's hilarious
yeah.
because it was adamant.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
mean,
like with the,
it became more and more and more forceful. You know, it would go
Mhm.
to these letters with increasing strength and accuracy and clarity, and it was like, okay. And then when I plugged it in, and it was Latin, and it actually
yeah,
translated into English that made sense and was appropriate to my situation, it was like, oh my
yes.
God, this is wild. This is crazy.
Well, I just have to say that I'm trying to find the first part where Lori was talking about this. But uh, when Lori's looking, trying to get her spirit guide's name,
Right.
mine was Malgonquin.
Hmm.
So, which I'm sitting there thinking, Algonquin?
Hmm.
That's a Native American tribe. No,
Right. Right.
Malgonquin. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. Still don't know what it is.
Right.
So, and Lori said that she's been told 2 different times that she can't pronounce his name, so she's supposed
Hmm.
to call him Sam
There
because
you
she
go.
can remember that name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
Tom
you know,
McNicholas.
sometimes over the years, I've asked various spirits that have been with me for most of my life if they had a specific name that they wanted me to call them by or
Mhm.
give to me or whatever. They were like, no, don't need
Just
to.
here.
You
Yeah,
know me. I know you. You recognize my presence. You don't need a name. You know
exactly.
when I'm here. You know what I do for you. You know when I'm around. You know my energy. So you don't need a name. You know, it's like that's one thing that people, especially clients, are always obsessed with. What's my spirit guide's name? It's like you don't necessarily need to know. If the
Well,
connection is there, if you recognize them, they could
yes.
have a name that you can't pronounce, like you said, or they could have a name that's private. They don't want you to know. You
Yes.
know, they
Well,
could
would you
have a
still?
name. Maybe they've been through several dimensions and incarnations and whatever, and use several different names, and it's like there's no point. You know, I've had 1,000 names, so it's like,
Well, yeah, because if they've been around for millennia, then
yeah,
that's a strong possibility.
yeah.
But Tom wants to know, do you ever get someone else's reading coming to you by someone you're not trying to read? Do they ever cross over, I guess?
No, no. It's no. I'm just the channel's always open, and you know, everything that comes is meant to come, and I receive it, and it doesn't bother me, and everything's as is supposed to be.
Well, that's interesting because I had thought too, when we first started talking so many years ago, it's hard to
Hmm.
believe it's been
I know it's
years.
been a while.
I know, I love it. But I always have wondered if if that can get crossed.
Hmm.
If because I've never gone with someone to have a reading. I've never gone anywhere to have a reading
Yeah.
specifically. But
Yeah, it doesn't ever get crossed, but there are occasions like in group things that I've done. It doesn't really necessarily get crossed, but the focus will shift. It's like, okay, I'm talking to you about this now. Oh, wait, all of a sudden over here, so and so and so and so, you know, and it does like that, but it never gets crossed over. It never gets mixed up. It always stays distinct and separate. I know that what I'm saying for you is for you, and what I'm saying over here is for you. So
okay.
it doesn't ever get mixed up. It doesn't ever cross over in that way.
Do you do I feel crazy asking you of all people this question, but I mean, we don't start out being brilliant at
Right.
everything we do.
Exactly.
Do you do like reader development kind of things? Is there such a thing?
As far as
Like honing
improving,
and developing further? Or
oh
are
yeah,
you
good
pretty
Lord,
much
yeah.
at apex?
No, I'm not even close. It's I constantly study, I constantly practice, I constantly connect with the other side. I constantly strive to make that connection cleaner, purer, better. and it's something you never accomplish. It's always a learning process.
Because I know how long you've done it.
Yeah.
So
Over 50 years, and it just blows my mind. I've read for clients in over 40 countries.
holy cow.
How crazy is that? I look
How
at that and
cool
I'm
is
like,
that?
my God, it's like, India, England, Pakistan, uh, Israel. I mean, just everywhere. I have read for people in over 40 countries, and it's like, I've read for people in Russia and Estonia. I've read for people in Mexico. It just boggles my mind to
It's very
think of that.
cool.
It's amazing. It's such a gift, but it's like, oh my God, over 40 countries. And yes, I've kept track of them because as I started to get more and more and more foreign clients, I would like write them down. And of course, I had records of them in the payments and everything. And it was like, oh my God, I've got this huge international clientele here, and a lot of repeat clients from like the UK and things like
Mhm.
that. And it was just like, my God, what a gracious gift to me to have this worldwide reach.
I
And
have friends who have reached out to you
yeah,
and let me know that.
yeah,
And I think that's pretty cool.
it is. It is.
And
And
they're UK based.
yeah,
So they're the
yeah,
only ones that ever reach out to me to tell me things like that. I'll get, oh, that was a great show the other night or whatever from
right, right,
everybody. But
right.
then, you know, something specific like that, just
Yeah,
my UK friends.
yeah, yeah.
So,
I've
and one
done
in France.
13 UK podcasts so far, 13 different UK podcasts. So that's been a lot of fun. I had the privilege of doing 3 interviews with Howard Hughes before he died, before he crossed over.
Yes. I think
And
that's one of my favorite things about you.
in 2 of the interviews that I did with Howard, he experienced paranormal phenomena in his flat while we were on the air. And it was virtually the same phenomena each time. And he said, "I'm not a woo-woo type of guy. I'm a black and white, practical guy." But he said, "This is something physical occurring to me right now while we're talking. It's not due to a draft. It's not due to this. It's not due to that." And we discussed it at length on the air live both times, and it was really amazing. And I picked up on who was visiting him, and it was a really amazing thing.
Has George ever had that experience when y'all were talking?
Yeah. There was we were I can't remember. I think it was no, we were still on the air, I think. And right before we went to break, and I got this thing, and I said, "Who is this?" And he goes, "Oh, that's so and so, a real dear friend of mine that's on the other side now." And then we went into break. So yeah, we've done that there. And then I think it was with Tom that somebody came through. We were talking on the break before I went back on the air, and somebody came through for him, and I told him about him, and he validated it and confirmed who it was and all this, and so yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
It's just so neat when that happens.
it is.
I
It's just
mean,
amazing,
it
and
is.
it confirms for us that people's personalities, souls, lives, spirits, memories survive and can communicate from the other side, and
In real time.
yeah, and that should give us
And
hope and encouragement, and let us know that we're going to live on as well, and death in the end.
well, I think that's probably my favorite part of that skill
Yeah,
is that, I used to, back in the day, I was afraid that it would mean that people were trapped or
yeah,
that whatever.
yeah.
And it's really not because it is a free will
It absolutely
thing.
is.
And I
Yeah,
have,
I try and explain to people. It's like people aren't earthbound; they choose where they're going to be and how long they're going to stay there and who they're going to stay around. And what we don't understand, we may encounter a spirit of a deceased loved one and think, "Oh my God, they're trapped here." Well, we don't understand. We've seen them for 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Now they're off on the other side doing something else,
mhm.
and we think, "Oh my God, they're trapped here with us." No, they're over there way yonder. They may be in another dimension and then coming back, So we we have to overcome this earthbound misconception, because
Absolutely.
yeah, that's really pretty much a fallacy. And one of the funniest things, I talked to some people. I was on an interview, and they were talking about, the Queen Mary, the ship, right? The
Yeah.
haunted Queen Mary, and they said there's this little girl that appears, I think, by the pool area there or something on the ship, and she's like, and all the psychic investigators that go there, all the paranormal investigators that go there, tell her, you're free now. You can go to the light. You don't have to be trapped here anymore. Oh, good. And the little girl goes. The next group of paranormal investigators come. Guess who's
There
by
she
the pool?
is.
The little girl. Over and over and over.
You know,
And whatever spirit that is on the other side going, I got you again.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a child spirit, because they're going to think that's so much fun.
And, we have to understand that, beings, spirits, entities on the other side, they have senses of humor just like we do. They play pranks just like we do.
Well, they're the same as they were when they were alive.
And the deceased loved ones are the same as they were when they're alive. They don't cross over to the other side and go, oh, now I'm all wise and all knowing. There's a
I'm the Dalai Lama.
Yeah,
there's only a few of those.
There's a continued growth process. They're exactly right. So, yeah, exactly.
I had an experience because there was a young woman that a friend of mine turned me on to. She's a medium.
Mm-hmm.
She does not claim to be a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of like, well, what's the difference? Yeah. And she was like, well, I just talked to I just know who's there. I'm like, okay. The most realistic cold read. It wasn't even a read, but she was like, you have a lot of dogs around you, which, if you know me, you know that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she was, but I just lost Kylie, my lab, fairly recently. So I'm thinking, oh, well, it's Kylie. She says she's Willow, who had been gone for a few years and was the first dog I ever had who actually needed me.
Right.
Desperately. Right. She had had a horrible life before we met. But I'm like, oh, I know Willow. And I never say anything except I know them or I don't know them. I don't feed. And so she was like, and you have a lot of people with you. I'm like, well, that could be, I have a lot of people. But she was like, Gordon's here. And I was like, I know Gordon. Mm-hmm. And she said, and Joshua's here. And I'm like, I know Joshua. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, Scott's here. I was like, oh, I know Scott. And so we just went on about our thing. And so because this was just a get to know you thing. Right. Well, Scott, Gordon's my dad. Joshua's my nephew who died at 17. Scott is his dad. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Scott and my dad would be in the same area would blew me away. That blew me away. Right. I'm like, boy, there's a lot of loosening up on the other side.
There you go. Sometimes
history doesn't matter.
Sometimes there is, yeah. Sometimes
and
there is.
So it was just so bizarre. Yeah. Not the people I would have thought were here. I knew my dad was here a lot because when I was hurt, when I broke my knee, I couldn't move. I couldn't be out of bed for like 3 months. And
right.
My dad was here most of that time. Mm-hmm. But it's just so interesting. What to you is the difference between a psychic and a medium? Or is there a difference?
Really, there's not really. I communicate with the dead. I hold seances. I do that. I predict the future. If you're a psychic, you're a medium. If you're a medium, you're a psychic to me.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, it's like we have all this proclivity to differentiate things with labels and put labels on things. And it's like remote viewers. That's just clairvoyance.
Yes.
That's what psychics have always exhibited is clairvoyance, and that's all remote viewing is. But we have to put these pseudoscientific or new age labels on things and fancy it up and say, okay, now it's this, now it's that. But we have this problem with labels, and I've always said I have one label, psychic, and under that it's an umbrella term for everything.
Yeah.
Everything that I practice, experience, do, manifest, whatever, let's just put it all under one label and be done with it. But I get tickled to that when people say, well, I'm a medium, but I'm not a psychic, or I'm a psychic, but I'm not a medium. Do you see ghosts? Yeah. Do you talk to people on the other side? Yeah. Well, you're a medium.
Yeah.
It's like, so.
Yeah. And I think that because when I had her on the show, she's brilliant, but she's not very public,
Yeah.
which sounds odd.
Yeah.
But so she didn't want to do readings on the air. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's okay. I'm not going to ask you to do anything
Right.
you don't want to do. That's not what we're about.
Yeah.
It's not what I'm about. And yeah, because I'm just interested in people and I want to share people I find fascinating with listeners. So,
Exactly.
because I think they'll find them fascinating too.
Right.
You're one of the best people I know for that.
Oh,
And,
well,
you know, your writings are great.
thank
people-
you. Thank you.
And I do want to go back and share that 20 ways to increase your psychic abilities, because everything else is kind of the raconteur stuff.
Yeah.
It's sharing. By the way, the Crying Tree and the Magic Rock,
Yeah. Latest
outstanding.
book. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
They're all outstanding. But I think the fact that you went to the effort to put together a book to help people come along on your trip with you.
Yeah.
You know, I think everybody has talent to some degree.
They do to some degree, yeah. And that's the main reason I wrote this book. You know, over the years, the other side taught me techniques directly, and I put them into practice, and I was like, oh, this works. You know?
Yeah.
So in my readings, when apropos, I would tell my client, oh, I know a technique that'll help you in this situation. I'd give them the technique. They told me, yeah, I used it and it worked. So it was like, finally, it was like, write a book. So everybody, you know, not just your clients, so everybody can use these tools and techniques that literally actually work. And when I wrote the book, 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities, I deliberately wrote it to take away all the gobbledygook, the rigmarole, the dogma, the tradition, the ritual, the nomenclature, everything else, and say, okay, look, here is the technique. This is how you define it. This is what it is. And then this is how you learn it step by step. And this is how you put it into real world practice. And you don't have to buy a cape and a bunch of crystals and a bunch of candles and a bunch of incense and sit outside on the third Thursday of the third month at midnight. And you don't have to do this stuff. And again, this is where it gets problematic, because I would have more success if I told people, well, you have to buy dragon's fang and snake's blood, and you got to shave your head on the third Thursday of the month. And people would go for that and pay me $5,000.
Yes.
I've got a $20 book that says, look, here's 20 techniques that literally will work for you in the real world and literally change your life and literally enable you to manipulate your life and circumstances around you for the better. And here it is, $20. You buy it one time, you've got it for life. There's 20 different tools and techniques. Each one is defined, clearly explained. I'll take you by the hand, walk you through these things step by step, tell you how to do it, tell you how to practice it, how to get good at it, the real world application of it, stripped free of all the nonsense and the rigmarole that people have dumped upon these things for years and years.
Yeah, the mysticism efforts kind of can overwhelm.
And next year, now I've got a new book coming out this year, The Cansack Ghost, which is more true paranormal experiences. And then next year in 2026, there is going to be a follow-up, which I did not think there would be, because people asked me, will there be a follow-up to 20 ways? And I was like, no, that's it. That's what the other side gave me.
That's the 20 ways.
It's 20 ways. There will be 20 more ways to increase your psychic abilities coming in 2026. And the reason for that is I was sitting there one day in meditation, and the guys were like, hey, John, what about this? I was like, oh, dang, that's right. This is such a powerful tool, such a powerful technique. And I didn't include it in the book. I forgot about this. And then we're like, what about this? And I was like, oh, my God, yeah. And these are all things, again, that work powerfully. Easy to learn, easy to practice, and produce physical, visible manifestations in your life. And spiritually, they help you. Mentally, physically, emotionally, they help you. And I was like, oh, my God, that's right. And so 20 more ways. So that'll be coming out in 2026. I'm in the process of writing that now. And the early feedback I've gotten is like, holy cow, I need this.
No
So,
doubt.
yeah, well, good. So yeah, so that's coming, and there's more books in the works after that. So lots to go there, lots to do.
Well, I'm so impressed with what I know about you.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you.
And,
I appreciate it. I appreciate
you
it.
know, I love the fact that you had a crying tree that you wanted to cry because you didn't get there in time to save it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
things like, I mean, you didn't say that, but I know that's how you felt.
yeah,
And it's just the way that you write and the stories that you share are so special. And
thank,
I think
thank
that
you.
people people will learn a lot about how you do what you do
Yeah,
and what matters to you, and
through
they'll
those stories.
realize they'll realize what a special human you are and what
Oh,
you bring to the
thank you.
table and how you interact with your clients.
Yeah,
And I mean, I'm not one yet because I just haven't.
you haven't
I'm not,
needed to.
huh?
You haven't needed to.
Well, no. And but I have some stuff that I want answers for, so I'm going to get on
Mhm,
your list.
mhm.
But I think that what you do is so important, and there's a lot of people that I know who do readings and practice mediumship, and they're not always just as forthcoming.
Yeah, yeah,
There are people that want to be seen as mystical,
right, right,
and there's people that are like, oh, Joe over there said that you better get your act together because they're tired of having to save your butt,
right.
and I've
Yeah,
had somebody almost come out and say that to me.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, I don't even know Joe.
yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I do know Joe.
I do know Joe.
Okay. you
Yeah,
know, but, um, but it's so interesting because it's such a different perspective that you bring to the table. And
yeah,
I think there's a lot to be said for the diversity in the field, but I think there's an awful lot to be said about your forthrightness, and you just treat it as a, well, here you go.
here you
This
go.
is it,
Yeah,
and this is the way it is.
yeah.
And I
You know
don't
what?
know how to tell you anything else. You don't need
Yeah,
anything else. This is
yeah.
the way it is.
That's the thing I learned through learning this gift and practicing this gift and having all these thousands and thousands of clients in over 40 countries over all these years is, people need the truth. They don't need my opinion. They don't need what I feel about anything. They need what the other side is telling me to tell them and how to apply that in their lives to make their lives better. And that's the sole reason I do what I do. It's like it's not to entertain you. It's not to puff you up. It's not to blow smoke your way. It's not to aggrandize myself. It's just to exercise this gift in the best way that I know how to help you, to help your life, and to move your life forward in positive ways. And if I can do that, I've succeeded. I've done what I've been put on this earth to do.
Would you ever have thought that this is where you would be?
No.
I
never
know,
in a
right?
million years. I mean, I've met Uri Geller face to face. I corresponded with Uri and then met Uri face to face and got endorsements from him for my books. I've met and interacted with wonderful people and had wonderful, marvelous experiences and gone to fantastic places for paranormal investigations and things. And like I said, read for thousands and thousands of clients in over 40 countries. And it's just, my God, how great is this? And then to write these books and to have them well received and to be able to sit down and tell these stories from my life in meaningful ways that touch people, that reach out to people and say, hey, you can experience this in your life. This is something meaningful that can occur to you that you can validate for yourself. And it's like there's always the skeptics and like, well, give me proof, show me proof. And if you
Yeah.
showed them proof, they wouldn't accept it. And I
No.
always tell people, I say, look, you want to prove that this is real, you want to prove this exists, go get my third book, 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities. Sit down and practice this honestly and diligently for 2 or 3 months, and you will prove to yourself that the other side exists, that this is real, that you have these abilities to whatever degree. So that's been my big push in all of this, is to say, okay, let me get that message out there. And it's been hard. I mean, I've been called a fraud, a fake, a phony, a cheater, a liar, the devil's own son, the devil himself, on and on and on and on. It's like, okay, whatever. It's like, but the message is important enough to me that I continue to get it out there. I want to get it out there. And however many years I've got left, I want to spend that doing all the more that I can to get this message out there, and to try and keep people away from the clutches of the phonies and the frauds and the people that tell them what they want to hear and things like that.
In your writing, do you help people to recognize the phonies and the frauds?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, in the Crying Tree and the Magic Rock, I go into a pretty long diatribe on the fakes and the phonies. And in the upcoming book, The Cansack Ghost, I talk about the cynics, because they're not skeptics, they're cynics. And in The Cansack Ghost, the upcoming book, I have a real long story and analysis in there about the amazing Randi, James Randi. And it's really interesting to know what I discovered about him and the things that went on there. So that's in the third book, or the fifth book rather.
Yeah.
So I discuss all of these things, and I like to take things and poke things and get down to the nitty gritty of things. Where's the bone marrow? That's where the truth is. Let's get away from all this other stuff. Let's get away from what people have said. Let's get away from the advertisements. Let's get away from the self-aggrandizement. Let's poke and get down to the bone marrow and find out what's real, what's really happening there. And that's what I like to do. So my dear friend Martha C. Lawrence, who's an award-winning author and has been a New York City editor and all these other things. And not only is she a friend, she's a client. And she said that this upcoming book, The Cansack Ghost, which she wrote the foreword for, she said it's like this great spiritual exploration of things that, not only spiritual, but analyzing this and that and the other and whatever. It's part cosmic, what, all these wonderful things in this thing. So she's like, he examines, the spiritual ramifications of AI, artificial intelligence, which I do in the book, and a lot of other things. So it's such a privilege to be able to do this, and to know that there's going to be people that, and I've already gotten that feedback, as I mentioned, that there are going to be people that go, you've changed my life with this. You've taken away my fear of the unknown with this. It's been a blessing. It's been, and the great thing to me, I don't write in a pretentious manner. I'm not trying to be.
No, you do not.
And I write in my voice, and it works, because tons of people have said, I feel like I'm sitting down across from the table from this guy, listening to his stories while we're having a favorite drink, and I feel like he's my friend. Now, you can't do any better than that as a writer.
No, you can't.
You can't do any better than that as a writer. So that makes me happy. And when I get literary criticism from various critics, well, this could have been, that could have been, it's like, I'm not writing for you. I'm writing for the person out there that's looking for spiritual truth, and picking up the book and going, holy cow, really? This guy experienced this? And he says, I can learn from this, and I can apply this to my life, and I can experience this. That's the person I'm writing for.
Well, you opened this can of worms, and I'm going to walk through the door.
All right.
All right.
I love it.
I have seen recently 2 different clips of ostensibly someone asking a chatbot a question and getting bizarro answers.
Okay.
Futuristic answers.
Yeah.
And is AI something that spirits are going to be able to manipulate and use?
Oh, absolutely.
Because the stuff that I'm hearing is bizarre.
And they already have. the I can't think of his name right now, but you can Google it and you'll find out. This guy that is basically called the godfather of AI.
Mm-hmm.
So the OG, the supreme guy of
Right.
AI, the godfather of AI, he has said publicly many times, we got to put the brakes on this right now because we're way out of control. We're moving way too fast.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what this thing's going to do. We don't have control of it. There was Morgan Spurlock, the guy that did Super Size Me, the McDonald's thing.
Yes.
And he's dead now. Not from McDonald's, I don't think. But he also did a documentary on artificial intelligence and robots. And I saw it. And one of the wild things, and I write about this in my book, and the upcoming book about AI, one of the bizarre things, this company had developed these little teeny small robots. They were on wheels, and they would run around this little enclosure and perform these little program tasks. And when their energy got low, they would go back to this docking station automatically, recharge their batteries. And when their batteries were charged, they'd go back out and go about their little business again. Without any change in programming or without any of this written into the programming, all of a sudden there were some robots, not all of them, but some of the little robots would try and hog the power station. They would go in and dock and try and hog it and keep the other robots from charging. And they said, we didn't know why. So here's the ghost in the machine.
Sentience is scary.
Yeah. And as, we see that spirits can manipulate physical objects. They can close doors. They can cause aromas to appear. They can open things, close things. They can make sound, so on and so forth. So if they can manipulate the physical realm, they can manipulate AI because they manipulate EVP. They do ghost photographs. They do all these other things. So they are, if they haven't already, and I'm sure they have, they're going to manipulate AI for whatever reason. And so this is something that we have to be aware of. And the problem with all of this is that the development of AI has been economy driven.
Yes.
It's not been, oh, look, Elon Musk developed this thing where a guy can wear it and he was paralyzed and now he can walk. That's a side effect. None of these people set out to go, let's take AI and let's make our life as good as we possibly can make it. And let's make it that way for everybody. And let's focus on medical needs and let's focus on this. But nobody did that.
Nope.
Everybody that you watch on these interviews where people have interviewed these huge leaders in AI, they've made millions or billions off of this. And their focus is, man, let's develop this. Let's expand
it out there.
Let's get it out there. Let's make it as big as we can. Let's make all the money off of it that we can. It's economy driven. It's money.
It
money.
Is economy driven. And, it's actually something that can have serious effect on nuclear facilities. On medical. Yes. On
legal. I read somewhere that they're going to, I think they're already using it someplace, but they have an AI judge that's going to render legal decisions. Now, if an AI judge riffles through all of this programming and accesses all of these internal documents and says, well, this guy in front of a store stole a motorcycle that had a key in it and rode it away, guilty as charged, he's got to go to jail. Now, a human judge will hear the side of the story where there was a kid over there in the lake drowning, calling for help, and he realized he couldn't run fast enough to get there. There's a bike there. It's got a key in it. Sorry, dude, I'm stealing your bike. I'm going to go save this kid. Now, a human judge will take that into account. An AI judge will not.
Nope.
So we have all these.
Although they're trying to present it as they're programming that kind of sentience, but you cannot program.
You can't program emotions. You can't program that type of experience. You can't
program a soul.
Yeah. Well, look, Doc Hollywood. Remember the movie Doc Hollywood?
I do.
And what's his name was fixing to call for the operating room for the kid, and the old doctor came in, popped the
Yeah.
Coke open, and said, "Here, drink this," and the kid burped or farted or whatever, and he said, "There you go, you're fixed."
All better.
Yeah, all better.
Yes.
And so you have to have that knowledge, you have to have that experience, and that's not in AI, even with all of this stuff, and it's not going to be. AI
No.
is not going to have a heart, it's not going to have emotions. And what I try and get people to understand is we're talking about not artificial intelligence, we're talking about machine intelligence.
Yes.
And we don't know what that machine intelligence is going to do when it advances to the point of sentience.
Well, and it's pretty much there.
It's getting close. It's getting
It's
real close.
very close.
It's very, very close right now. And it's like, look, you need to go in and talk to the banker for a loan and explain your situation. What if that goes away and now you have to deal with AI? And AI is like, okay, credit report, this, payment history, blah, 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 denied, Whereas the human banker will say, oh, okay, I see what you're going through here. We'll help you out. So we have to understand these things. We have to understand that this is moving way too fast. It's gotten way ahead of us. And that's according to the godfather of AI. And we're in a really sensitive and a very difficult situation here. And the problem is that AI reinvents itself by leaps and bounds. And it's going to get to the point. Yeah, it's going to get to the point where we're standing back going, what happened? We don't know what's going on. We don't have any control.
Well, because it will take control of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I do want to let people know, and I just lost her. And Joanne Stewart said it's damn scary. And Joanne Stewart, I agree with you. I think it's damn scary too.
Yeah.
And, I do think that there's so many things that are wonderful that can come with it, but there is too much of a push to get it 100%.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Bless you. Well,
thank you.
And I do want to let people know also, we are coming into the final stretch of the show. If you want to win a pretty decent, astounding edition of Fate magazine, put hashtag. Where I lost my hashtag.
Hashtag mag.
Hashtag mag.
There you go.
MAG.
Yes.
Put it in here, and Carl's got everything. Oh, I see it. Thank you. Carl's got everything ready to put the little computer wheels spinning. We're going to get those mice geared up and give them a little Gatorade to get going.
There you go.
And so,
and let me tell you, folks, I've read Fate magazine and subscribed to Fate magazine since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And Fate magazine covers are works of collectible art. Honest to God, they really are. They really, really are.
And I've got some.
And support Fate magazine. And if you go to my website, johnrussell.net, where I have my psychic work for my readings, scroll down to the bottom of the page. I've got a big red Fate logo there that you click on. You can go to Fate and support Fate magazine. You can subscribe. You can read the articles, find out more about Cat Fate Magazine Radio. Click on that and support Fate magazine.
And here's one of them, H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Oh, God, yes.
And then this one, Stevie Tombstone wrote the article on the tattoos.
Yeah. I've got that one.
It's a good one.
I've got that.
And then the Ancient Serpent Empires of Atlantis and the Druids are part of this one.
I've got that one.
And you have all of them. You're like me.
Yeah.
And we've got so many. They're all down. They're a little farther than I can reach.
Right.
But, I just absolutely, I'm thrilled to represent Fate magazine.
Oh,
I love everything about it.
Yeah,
and
I do too. Well, it was like the first and the oldest, right?
Yeah. And it's so funny, people younger than us, when I have them on or I'm booking them, are always like, oh, well, that was bathroom reading at our house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, Reader's Digest was at my grandpa's, but at my house, we had Fate.
Yep.
And, so it's just that kind of personal, and people don't mind sharing that with me, even though I'm like, oh, okay. The first time somebody said that to me, I was like, good to know. Good talk.
Yep.
Good talk. It's so funny.
Absolutely.
But I am so proud to be affiliated with with Phyllis Galdi,
Oh
and
God, yes. Oh God,
she's
yes.
so special.
She is great. She's a force to be reckoned with in the paranormal world, and always has
Yes,
been,
she is a
and
force of
always will be.
nature.
Yeah, yeah.
She is. And
Great lady.
this woman is so brilliant. She had a double hip replacement,
Yeah.
and I was on the phone with her, and she's like, I have to go. I have to catch the goats. And I'm like, what? So she's always chasing her goats. But
She emailed me a picture of the goats, by the way.
aren't they precious?
Yes, I love goats,
So,
anyways.
and she was actually affected by Hurricane Helene in North Carolina.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
she lives in an area that they lost their way out.
yeah, yeah.
So she was there and no power, and but blessed to have a pond.
Right.
So, she is a force of nature.
She's a tough gal. She's a tough
She is
gal.
a brilliant
Yeah.
human.
Yes, she is.
So
Yes,
Fate
she is.
Magazine is really special, and you contribute. I contribute.
Yeah.
Stevie did the Stevie does a lot, but he did the why tattoos.
Right. Right.
And I just find everything about it to be fun.
Yeah.
And it's been around since 1947. The first
Yep.
article was Kenneth Arnold.
Yep.
The first cover was
Flying saucers. Yeah.
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 So I think that's pretty cool.
It
But
is.
Carl, would you like to go ahead and put the spin on that? All right. And this thing, once he hits that, there we go. Hang on tight. Y'all are spinning through there.
Oh, cool.
Okay, Lori Dorsey is going to be banned from entering this contest in the future. This is her third time to win. So,
Lori, congrats.
and so she is so funny that
That's
she
great.
said, I don't know if I should do that. And I'm like, well, sure you should. So, but it's a lot of fun.
She was fated to win.
Fated to win.
See what I did there?
I do. Touche, sir.
There you go. There you go.
But, well, we've got a few more minutes. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes. But I want to make sure before we go any further that people know how to find you. Do you want to give your information?
Yeah. Go to johnrussell.net. And that's my psychic website. That's where you find out information on my readings, my credentials, my client testimonials. I have almost 90 client testimonials on my website. I have media testimonials there, and so on and so forth. So that's where you go for the readings, johnrussell.net. If you want to find out more just about the books, go to johnrussellauthor.com, johnrussellauthor.com. And there I've got my books, my endorsements, my testimonials, my awards, links to buy the books, and the books are available at all major booksellers online. That's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Apple Books, a lot of the independent bookstores, some of the bigger bookstores online, they carry my books. They're carried in the UK online, and so on and so forth. Actually, I found out recently that they're available worldwide, in like Thailand and Russia.
How cool is that?
Yeah, all these places. It's like, oh, it's amazing. But yeah, you can get them anywhere online, like Pal's Books, the big, Pal's Books, that they carry them online. Target and Walmart carry them online. So you can get them anywhere. They're there anywhere.
You're everywhere.
I'm everywhere. I'm there.
I love that. Well, I am always so blessed to be able to have these conversations with you.
Oh, thank you.
From the time we started, it's always been a great time.
It has.
And when we started, you had a book.
Yep. Now I've got 4 out and coming up on 5. So
I love it.
Yes,
I love it.
Yep.
But I always tell people that you're the most real person I know in the paranormal.
I appreciate it.
You are who you are. There's no errors. You have the abilities that you have. you have lived the life that you lived.
Yep.
And I think it's cool that you want to bring people along on developing their psychic abilities, but I think it's also important for people to know that all of your books bring something to them.
Yeah.
You know, your personal experience books
Yeah.
they're so involved and so in depth.
Yeah.
And I think that your willingness to share you.
Yeah. Well, you know, I like
Yeah.
to be honest in these books. And like in A Knock in the Attic, I'll tell people about when I lost my faith. You know,
Yep.
I went out on the highway at night and shook my fist at the heavens and cursed God. And, you know, said, I'm done with this stuff. Ain't doing no more. Ain't no psychic, ain't no readings, ain't no church, ain't nothing. That is, nah, I'm done with it. And then how that turned around.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have to be honest about my own life for people to be able to relate to that and to know the vagaries that you go through in the spiritual realm. And it's like I tell people, if I don't know one single person, minister, psychic, medium, whatever, I don't know one single person in the spiritual realm, in spiritual service, that if they really, honestly, seriously are trying to utilize what they believe to make a difference in this world, I don't know a single person yet that hasn't lost faith and cursed God. I don't know a single person yet that hasn't done that. If you haven't gotten to that point, you haven't gotten real. You haven't been really trying to apply what you know spiritually and just got to the point where you said, no, that's it. I'm done. And I write about those moments in my book. You know, I don't sugarcoat anything or varnish anything. There's no veneer. It's like, this is what I've experienced. This is what I've gone through in my life. But this is how the other side brought me out of it. This is what I learned from it. And this is what you can learn from it. And here's how we can go on. We don't have all the truth. We don't have all the knowledge. We don't have all the light, but we have some. And that has to be enough while we keep searching for the rest. And with that some, we can do a lot of good if we'll apply it. You know, so that's the focus of everything. And then I think I don't know, to me, you know, the other books, I've been absolutely transparent, absolutely,
Yes.
totally, completely honest, absolutely who I am. But in my fourth book, The Crying Tree and the Magic Rock, I think I've revealed things about myself, about my emotions, and about my spiritual journey that I've never revealed before.
I agree
And
with
never
that.
talked about before. And, you know, there's things like the death of my mother, how that came about and how that affected me and what that was like spiritually, and those types of things, and what we have to look at in reality in this world. And there's a lot of stories in there that cover things like that, that maybe probe a little deeper, that maybe hit a little harder. And then in the upcoming book, The Kansak Ghost, again, a lot of honesty in there, but going back more towards applying that honesty to, again, looking at strictly the paranormal realm and the paranormal experiences there. So it's a wonderful journey, and I've been blessed to take it. I've really been blessed to take it.
And we're blessed that you share it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I appreciate that a lot more than you could imagine.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Kat. I really do.
Well, I learned from you.
Oh, thank you.
And I appreciate you putting yourself out there so that I can gain knowledge from your experiences. So I think everybody reading them will.
I hope so. I hope so.
So go grab them. I mean, you're not going to go wrong. Any of the ones that you get. Hello, Anthony Lewis. Very true words and spirit paths shine a lot light on the path we are walking. That's true. So he said, thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And with that, we are out of time, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for loving on John. And we will see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel.
Bye, everybody.
Be blessed.